Folks at home, welcome back to the Crimson Oak Pond, and if you missed our last video, we built an eagle nest 45 feet up in the air, and it has been the hottest spot on the farm. A big variety of birds have stopped by to check it out, including a surprise visitor that I wouldn't have expected. So we'll be updating you on that here in just a minute, but the goal for today's video is to do some underwater exploring by strapping a tiny camera on turtles and fish. Let's jump right into it. Alright folks, today we're going to be exploring the 5-acre pond with this tiny camera. We're going to strap it to the back of a fish or a turtle and get an underwater view of all these structure piles and fish hideouts here in the 5-acre pond. But before we do that, we're going to do a trial run on our 30,000 gallon pond we call Cedar Falls. You can see the water's crystal clear right now. We got some of our pet bass down in there, tilapia over there hiding out, but we have a lot of fish caves in here, and so I've got a perfect little guy we can strap the camera onto. But before we do it, I want to show you how cool this camera is. You can remove the camera out of its holder right here and it becomes really lightweight, but one of the cool features is I can watch what's happening here on this screen while it's recording underwater, so I get a first-hand look while the fish and turtles are exploring. All right, and the first little guy the camera is going to get strapped onto is this little guy that I call Columbus. I believe these guys are known as cooter turtles, and I found him hanging out right down there in the shallow water. So we're gonna strap the camera on him, put it right here on his back, and let him take a swim right down there in Cedar Falls. So I'll show you how this is gonna work. We've got a little camera holder right here and a Velcro strap. So we're just gonna strap that Velcro around. And the number one question you guys are already thinking is, how are you gonna get your camera back? We're gonna tie a tether line onto the camera holder so we can't lose the camera. And this little guy right here doesn't seem to be too shy at all. And Columbus said he is the man for this job. Full of energy and ready to go. We got us a little James Bond, little private eye, about to do some investigating. I like it. Do a quick little experiment right here. Make sure our gear is working like we intend. Hey, look at there. We are live on the turtle cam, and man, everything looks different from this angle. But so far, the camera's staying on good. He's got full use of all of his legs and feet. I think the camera's sitting at the perfect angle, and so the mission's a go. And we're going to start him off right here on the beach. It should give him easy access down into the pond. That's funny. Looks like a turtle on a leash. And now we're on the maiden voyage into Cedar Falls. And one of the first things I'm happy to see is the water clarity. We haven't had rain in quite a while, so we should have really good visibility. There's a good look at how much shade those tropical lilies provide. And he's thinking about going into the deep end. Oh, and he was immediately approached by one of the bass, and I don't think he was sure what to think about that. He retreated and got a better game plan. So this turtle should be used to seeing bass, but probably not with this clarity. But I don't think the bass are used to seeing turtles this big. We put a few babies in here this past spring, and I hadn't seen them around. If I had to guess, they've made the trek over to the 5-acre pond. But you can tell the bass aren't really sure what to think about it. They seem a little defensive, kind of walling him off and keeping him right here in the shallow end. But they don't seem to be too aggressive, so that's good. But how cool is this underwater shot? Man, I would love to get a live feed camera streamed directly from a turtle cam. It would basically be like a day in the life of a turtle. And I've recently seen people live streaming drones, so I think the technology's getting there. You never know. One day we may be running live streams from our pet turtles and bass. So we're finally getting past the introduction stage. I think every bass swam up to him, inspected him, probably the camera as well. They're not used to seeing that. And now I think we're about to do some exploring. Another good look at the lilies there. Alright, now he is on a path out towards the deeper part of the pond. Hey, there's a tilapia. Now we picked a perfect day to do this. That's probably about 10 to 12 feet visibility. He just came up to the surface and poked his head out. It's cool to see that angle. Another shot of the fish there. And he's making his way a little bit deeper. Now this is where things are going to get interesting. He's starting to maneuver through some of those big aqua blue stones that we set a year ago during the pond build. And he should give us some views that we haven't ever seen before. As you can see right now, he's going down into one of those fish caves. And Ed built us a total of 3 of them, and we wanted to make sure the fish had plenty of hiding places to get away from the eagles and ospreys, and not have to worry about those predators. But that's the first time I've seen that angle since we filled the pond up with water. And he made his way out the other side, and now he's heading back up to the surface. And that's probably one of the advantages of putting this on a turtle rather than a bass, and that's because you can even get the above water view. Oh, and it looks like he's heading down into the other fish cave. The rope actually got stuck on this one. I had to retrieve him and get him out of there. And now he's working his way around the far side of the pond. I believe those are the wooden pilings for the dock. Yep, he even popped his head up and gave us a little view of it. And we got a little aggressive bass action. And June being a little curious. There's a good look at one of those tilapia. And one of the primary reasons this pond doesn't have more algae. They keep it pretty clean. So we couldn't finish this underwater dive without taking a look at the waterfall area. So I moved him over there and he walked right up to it. There's a really cool shot of the bait fish and a good look at how much dissolved oxygen that waterfall's pumping into this pond. Alright, he made a full lap around the pond. I'd say all the camera gear tested out fine. We're going to give him a little break and then test it out in the 5-acre pond. We got it working in the little pond. Let's try the big pond. And he should be familiar with this one. This is his home. But as soon as I put him in the water, we had a school of tiger bass chasing these tilapia right up here in front of him. That's wild. But unfortunately, it's also dirtying up the water. When the school of bass attack, they leave little dust clouds behind them. And while we had really good water clarity in Cedar Falls, this is probably the worst time to do it here at the 5-acre pond because we had an algae bloom that we believe is called Euglena. And as you can see from the overhead look, it creates a brown cloud. So our visibility may not be great, but we're also going to strap a camera to one of the bass so we get 2 different viewpoints, the fish perspective and the turtle perspective. Let's see which one works out better. First up, we got one of those tiger bass looking for snacks here in the shallow water. And even though the water clarity is not great, this is exactly what I want to see. Is some of these underwater brush piles and see if any of the bait fish are hanging out around it. But unfortunately, this stuff looks kind of thick and he may end up getting stuck. So a lot of this looks a little different than what I was expecting, but some of this does give off a little bit of a rooted vegetation look. And I'm guessing that's what it is. Some vegetation growing underwater right here around these brush piles. But that should be a perfect habitat for all the threadfin shad and baby bluegills to get in and hide. But I am a little bit surprised not to see more of the smaller bait fish in the thick stuff. But it may be that the clumsy turtle's making a lot of noise moving through there. And now he's easing his way out of the water onto the log. But the one thing we're for sure to see is an abundance of tilapia. There are literally thousands of them in here right now that I'll be showing you here later in the video. And since we added them back in May, the tilapia have been nesting and laying eggs every 21 days. So there's thousands of baby tilapia ranging anywhere from 1 inch long all the way up to adults. But the one thing I struggled with at first is determining which of these smaller fish were tilapia or baby bluegills. And I think the easiest way to spot it is that black circle right behind the gill plate on the bluegills. Because a lot of times the color patterns are matching, they both can have those vertical stripes, but not all the baby tilapia have developed those color patterns like the adults. Oh, we got some more bass coming in to inspect. Now there's a big adult tilapia, and look at her just fanning that tail just as fast as can be. Those are some spawning creatures. They are built to reproduce. Well, that's about what I was expecting. Tilapia and more tilapia. And I don't think that the turtles made it anywhere out deep yet. That's why we're seeing an abundance of bluegills and tilapia, because they primarily live in less than 6 foot of water, especially when they're spawning. But overall, I'm pretty impressed with this experiment, and I think I'll do it again here in a couple months, because after the winter rolls in, all the algae blooms are going to die off, and if it gets really cold, sometimes this pond water will get crystal clear. So I think overall, the turtle cam did better than the bass cam. And a big shout out to Columbus the Turtle for giving us some good entertainment. Alright, thanks again, little guy. You're free. He doesn't want to leave. Man, you gotta love this pond. Got bass busting down there in the shallow water, eagles flying over, and since the eagles flying around right here by the nest we just built, I'll go ahead and give you an update on that. But before I do, a couple days ago when I was out here, I saw one of the coolest things with 2 eagles. They were both circling the pond, and they latched onto each other and started spiraling down towards it. And I turned on the camera and filmed for a while after that, but never captured it on camera. But it was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen with them two. Not sure what that was all about. If you know, leave it in a comment down below. Alright, now for an update on the eagle nest. So there's not many hours out of the day where it's not occupied by one type of bird or another. As you can see, it starts out with all species like these little tiny bluebirds. But there's a pecking order, and I found out it usually is determined by the size of the bird. But there's a big variety including birds like kestrels. But by far my favorite outside of the eagles is the kingfisher. He's got the long beak, the buzz cut, and has claimed this right perch right here. but even he knows his place and is not up for any confrontation when this guy shows up. He must be one bad little dude because all the birds are scared of this one. Most of the time he claims that middle perch, and there's a cool shot of him right at sunset. And look at there, he's even hopping down in the nest to do a little inspection. But I'm learning about a lot of these birds through you guys. Some of these species don't even use nests to lay their eggs. They burrow little holes in the ground and things like that. But so far they've been very entertaining to watch. You can see this little guy's got his chest puffed out. Not sure if that's a mating ritual or just trying to dry those feathers out. And check that out. After weeks of no rain, we finally got our first shower. And this little guy's going to ride it out right up here at what some of you guys call King's Landing. He's even hopping down in the nest, looking for a place to take shelter. Alright, now a little controversy. The kingfisher did not want to leave his perch. So he was defending his turf, but there's always somebody bigger and badder out there. And this time it happened to be the crows. They flew up and ran him off. So we've been talking about the crows and how smart they are. A couple people said I should train them to fetch things. If any of you know how to train a crow, please let me know because I'd love to try that out. And when I mentioned earlier that we had an unexpected visitor, it is this guy. And so when we built this eagle nest, this is not what we had in mind. This bird is known as a cormorant and can be a pond owner's worst nightmare. Especially if a flock of them come in, they can decimate the fish population. They're really fast underwater swimmers. They can eat the small bait fish, bluegills, and even the bass. So seeing these guys around is not what we were looking for. But he decided to set up shop here for the night, and I suspect he's going to be doing some fishing early in the morning. But again, it is always interesting to learn something about these new species. And just like some other birds, the cormorants tuck their head down between their wings when they sleep at night. Now for an update on the pair of bald eagles. So unfortunately, they have not landed on the perch or in the nest yet, but they are keeping their eyes on it 24/7. They've been either perched on the poles or on the trees right across the pond, keeping a close eye on it. And I have a feeling they're just being extra cautious because the Eagle Tower platform that they've known for the past year, the look of it changed so much a couple weeks ago when we built it. But I see them eyeing it, and I have no doubts they're going to work their way over to it. And on one other note, I asked you guys in the last video if you thought we should live stream the nest. And the majority of you said yes, that you would tune into it. So good news, this past week, we tested out our upload speeds, and I even streamed offline for a full day without any issues. And so the live streaming works. You'll probably see that rolled out here really soon. Right now I'm working on getting it set up so we can see multiple cameras throughout the farm and not just the Eagle Nest cam. So you'll probably be getting a notification soon that the stream is live. And those November Black Friday deals have officially arrived, folks, because we're getting access to Beam's biggest sale of the year. If you have trouble going to sleep at night, this could be the perfect product for you. Dream is a cup of healthy hot cocoa with 5 natural sleep ingredients to help you get your best night's sleep. And it targets the 4 stages of sleep and uses melatonin and magnesium, while in stage 1, then L-theanine and reishi help you transition into that deep sleep so you wake up feeling fresh and energized. And it's very simple to make. Just mix 1 scoop of Dream with milk or water about 30 minutes before bed. And they make the mixing an easy job because they include a frother. And our favorite flavor is mint, but they do have a variety of flavors, including cinnamon cocoa, chocolate peanut butter, and caramel. And with Beam, I feel much more energized in the morning, so if you have trouble waking up and are a little sluggish, I'd highly recommend giving it a shot. Dream has no added sugars and only 15 calories in a single serving. So if you're like me and have trouble sleeping, feel sluggish in the morning, or want a healthy way to cure your sweet tooth at the end of the day, you can get early access to Beam Cyber Sale when you click the link down below or scan the QR code and enter my code BAMABASS for up to 50% off site-wide. Don't miss this limited time deal. Alright, back over here at Cedar Falls, and I got one last little treat for these bass. I was cleaning out the prawn tank and found a few leftover prawns, so this will be their last prawn snacks of this year. Got him. Alright, it is feeding time. Got 2,000 golden shiners. Gonna get them acclimated, then feed them to the bass. We'll feed these little guys first, and then go do a feeding off the dock this evening. And I'm excited to say we were finally successful at hand feeding the bass here in Cedar Falls. It's something I've been working on for the past few months, and it took a while for them to get comfortable enough to eat them directly out of my hand, but we finally made it. It's something I've enjoyed doing with our other pets, like Moby when we were raising him up in the aquariums, and I'm sure you've seen some of those videos floating around the internet of guys doing this in their ponds. but the bass are much bigger, and when they come up to grab the shiner, the guy actually lips the bass with his thumb and lifts them out of the water. And I think that's funny. It's just a quick way to lift your bass up out of the water and say hey to him. But this is Johnny, June, Tiger, and our smallest pet bass, Eve. And I've mentioned this before, but here in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be adding a new species, which is going to be a smallmouth bass. And I'm making a trip up north with one of my friends, and hopefully we'll catch one or two and bring them back to Cedar Falls. So in the last video, I was mentioning how I like the look of these grasses that turn purple during the fall, and I was out here this morning, and they had a complete different look to them, almost like a little bit of a snow hint. So I had to get an up-close look, and how cool is that? All of the condensation gets trapped here on these fine blades, and it almost has that icicle look. I'll have to say that's pretty neat. For a landscaping plant, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. And we can't forget about our smallest bass fry up here in the wetland filter named Truman. He's always got an appetite too, so I feed him as often as I can. But I was thinking here eventually he's going to outgrow this. What do you guys think we should do? Move him to Cedar Falls or move him to the 5-acre pond? Let me know in a comment down below. Alright, I got some more good news, folks, and I've never been so excited to see a duck before. Because this is not just any duck, and over the years we've had at least a couple dozen wild ducks fly through. But you can probably see by how close that I'm getting to this duck, it's not a wild one. One of our baby ducks that we haven't seen in over a year flew back right here to his home. And man, that makes me happy. Me and Liz and Sarah basically raised this little gal up since the day she was hatched. We kept them in a duck pen until they were about 8 months old, and once they could fly around, we released them out into the pond. And about a year ago, right before the Cedar Falls build, all the ducks disappeared. But that was also right when the eagles showed up. So in my mind, all along, I thought that the eagles ran them off. Because if you notice, this duck is not scared of the eagle at all. You can see it flies right over there and plays in the water just beneath the tree that the eagle's sitting in without a care in the world. So they didn't leave because the eagles after all. They probably just wanted to fly around and explore some other ponds and water. But how cool is that they made it back home? This one's been sleeping on the island. Hopefully some more will show up soon and keep it company. So it doesn't just have the white bird that's been eating all the tilapia. But now let's talk about those tilapia. So I was putting my boat in the water, and I noticed there was a tilapia nest right at the bottom of it. And here in this one nest, you can see there's probably a couple hundred tilapia fry. But I'm going to do my best to show you the large quantities of tilapia that are in the shallow parts of the pond right now. And when we stocked the tilapia last spring, it was for two main reasons. The first was to get rid of all the algae, and the second was because of their reproduction. And by spawning every 21 days throughout the entire summer, they have provided an abundance of bait for these bass. And you'll see all different sizes from that tiny fry you just saw all the way up to adults. And the reason that's so important is because it provides meals for all 3 generations of bass. So most of the time in a pond, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th generations of bass never do as good as that initial strain of bass that was put into the pond, and it's always due to more competition, meaning more bass, and not enough food. And that's why the different sized tilapia are perfect, and that's because it provides meals to all those bass that were just hatched this past spring. So they may be looking for a 2 or 3 inch fish to eat, and without the tilapia in here, they may struggle to find that. And the other advantage is that baby tilapia are slow. So that's why you see the bass ambushing them up in the shallow water, is because it's much easier for them to catch these little tilapia, especially when the water temps cool off and they start getting lethargic. But right now our pond level's up kind of high, up into the grass, and watch how many shoot out as I walk along the grass, and you'll see just how many of them there are. And I like doing this because if I walk down one stretch of bank, by the time I get to the other end, you'll see topwater strikes everywhere. Alright, sitting out here on the dock, got a little storm rolling in, about to feed the fish. And as you watch some of these bass clips, you'll notice that they're still really aggressive. And that's one thing I love about this pond being down south, is that even though we're in November, we hadn't really had any cold fronts come through. So with these higher water temps, the bass are still in what's considered their growing season. And I think last year the bass put on the majority of their weight between July and November. And again, that was due to those high numbers of tilapia they could feed on, but also because those water temps were still high. And one other really interesting thing that happened last year is we had a bass spawn in the fall, right around November, December timeline. And now I see why I didn't catch it until the spring, And that's because as you walk down the bank right now, there's so many tilapia, you wouldn't notice if there were little bass fry swimming around. But since they didn't survive the winter, I was able to see them in those spring months like in February. So I'm not sure if the tilapia spawn triggered the bass spawn, or just being so far south did it, but I am going to be interested to see if it happens again this year. Which again, if we end up having a mild winter, that could change everything too. So tilapia can't survive whenever the water temp drops down below about 55 to 50 degrees. But if we had a mild winter, they could all survive, and there would be some good and some bad that come with that. Obviously, the good is that we wouldn't have to stock them again, and we probably wouldn't have any algae issues next spring. But the downside of it is they spawn in the same areas that the bluegills spawn in March and April. So what we would probably see is overcrowded spawning grounds, and that would mostly hurt the bluegills. Because bluegills are a lot like bass, and their spawning season is a really stressful time. So if they're having to compete with other fish and work harder to keep their nest clean and to keep other fish out of it, it's only going to add stress to the bluegills and potentially reduce their spawning numbers, which isn't something you want to do because bluegills are always the backbone of a bass pond. Back over here at Cedar Falls, and one of the reasons I love this beach is because it leaves the tracks behind and lets us know who's been here. I thought the tracks looked a little smaller, a couple of does or maybe a doe and a little one, stopping by to take a drink out of the pond. And I have a feeling this winter they're going to get a lot more comfortable with it now that it's been here a year, and we'll probably start seeing a lot more deer activity. And hey, look who I spotted. We got Columbus out there sunning on top of a log. He's recovering from all that work he did yesterday. Alright, I've been seeing some of the second and third generation bass swimming around out here chasing the little tilapia. We're going to try to catch a few of them and insert a pit tag today. We're going with the fall patterns, swim bait, jig, and other swim bait. It may even get lucky and catch a big one. Oh, there's a big one right there. I'm about to bring it right by. Oh, look at that. Man, I'm talking about aggressive. That was incredible. That's a nice fish, too. Big fish. He was sitting there waiting on a little tilapia to swim by. Tricked him. Alright, this fish has been caught. 5'7", 1258. That's a big one. Just look at how healthy that one is. Alright, and it weighs 3.99. Wow. 4-pound beauty. Gotta love it. Right at the bank. On a swim bait. Man, it's tough to beat that. And this big female is named Poseidon and is exactly what you want to see in a fish. I've caught her 6 times, and every time she's gotten bigger, and the last 3 times have been right out here in front of one of the feeders. So we know where she's going to be hanging around at. Got another one on the swim bait. Man, that's fun. They are fighting today. Another nice one. Alright, this one's been caught 5'7", 0371. It weighs 2.18. You can tell that's a male compared to that last one. Slender profile. And this one's named Reaper. The 3rd time I've caught him, and you can tell it's a male and slowly putting on that weight. Got him. This little swim bait's working today. Alright, that may be a 2nd gen bass. Nope, it's been caught. 5'7", 1111. It weighs 1.67. And this fish is named Xerxes, and another one of those interesting ones that lost a lot of weight right after the spawn and has just now recovered and caught back up to the weight it was back before the spring. There we go. Oh, we got a jumper. Look at here. He's getting some air. Little red spot. Wonder if that was an eagle claw. Never caught this one before. It's a healthy fish though. maybe Gen 2. Alright, its new tag is going to be 2232503. And it weighs 2.09. But I've been really impressed with the second generation bass. All of these in this list are second gen, and you can see a lot of them are pushing that 2-pound weight range after a little over a year of being in the pond, so they've got really good growth rates. Another good one. There we go. Back-to-back cast right there by the cypress trees. Ooh, it's a nice one. Putting up a fight today. Getting strong from all them tilapia. Got a little red fin right there, but that's the way you want to see them looking. Chunky. Alright, this one's 2232598. 2.27 pounds. And this second generation bass, they're starting to look healthy and fight like crazy. Wonder what it did to its little bottom fin there. And here we have Ziggy, third time we caught it, and another good fish that's continuing to grow. Got him. Right there off the bank. Wonder if that's that one I heard earlier. Feels good. Oh yeah. Look at the little one. Little bass chasing right in here. He heard the splashes. Another chunky one. Alright, another one that hadn't been caught. Second gen bass. And he weighs 2.13 pounds. You can see the bluegill feeders going off back in the back, but that's what you want them to look like, a little round football. Now let's check in on Chip the squirrel that's been enjoying his new squirrel house. I love how he swings in there sideways. He's not playing around. But we've been seeing a lot more of him. We've even had a couple birds stop by. So we just installed it this past summer, and I have a feeling that this winter something's going to move into it and use it as shelter. But Chip's done a full home inspection. I think he's happy with what he sees. He wasn't too happy with the stability of some of the furniture. He knocked over the refrigerator, looking for a few of those nuts we hid in there a couple months back. But with as much time as he's spending in here, I think he likes the house, and I hope he builds him a nest. And I think I need you guys to help me identify something I've been seeing down in the swamp cam. So my best guess is that this is a bobcat, and maybe a couple babies, but I can't get a close enough look to verify it. You just had a good look at the striped white and black ears, and then something chasing it, so I'm not sure if that was a raccoon that was getting chased by a bobcat, or maybe that was two bobcats playing. And I got one more shot of them at a different part of the farm, where it was a little foggy and you can't really tell. But one little guy that I always get a crystal clear shot of is one of the fawns we call Dasher. These two fawns are the most active on the farm. You see them walking in front of every camera, as they're on their feet throughout the day just exploring and feeding on a variety of different things down in the swamp. Hey, and check that out, even Chip hanging out down in the swamp. Now let's take a look at the Bonnie Bayou cam. That's the white bird that was hanging out with the duck earlier. And we got Mr. Buck Deer out late one night. And look at Dasher and Dancer. The mama's thinking about teaching them how to swim. And the feeder going off, and it is a battle between the species. The bald eagles versus the big white bird. And we got some more deer walking through the water. I always find it interesting that a whitetail will basically take any kind of shortcut he can, even if it means walking through the water. It would only be about 15 feet to go around, but they just cut right across every time. And I've also noticed they really like those little plants that have grown up right there on the pond's edge. So they must really like those buds or whatever it is on the stems of those plants. Even got the little guy out here eating on a few of them. Man, the Eagle Tower's looking good. But if you guys recall, a couple weeks ago we installed this AI bird feeder when the birds land right there to eat. Let's see what kind of visitors we've had this week. There's a good look at this little guy enjoying a snack. Like the view with the pond in the background. Another little bluebird out here with the morning dew. And this little guy did not approve of the snack options. All right, down here at the half acre, we planted this with winter crops last week, but I always come back in and add some extra winter peas. That's one of their favorite things to eat. So we're gonna add some right here in this area. There's both the eagles off in the distance. I'm surprised to see them down here at the food plot. So you can see grass is just now starting to pop up. We hadn't had rain in about 3 weeks. It's been pretty dry out here, so we planted it at a good time. But today we're putting out one of the buck favorites, G&D Rack Attack. So it's like a powder mixture of a few different things, but the bucks absolutely love it. All right, there's a good look at it. We'll see who comes out to eat tonight. So as I was watching back these game cameras, something dawned on me. You've heard me talk about how much I see the twin fawns. Well, if you look closely in this video, you'll see that it's not just one set of twins. There's a second pair of fawns. That makes much more sense now. And I mentioned that this product brings the bucks in. I don't know what it is. There must be something sweet in it, but they 100% love it. We got all the boys stopping by tonight. And they pretty much wiped it out, just a couple piles left the next morning. But here's a good size comparison of baby, mama, and daddy. The fawn's in the front and the doe's in the back, but look at how much bigger he is than the other two. Man, these bucks are big. And the mama's getting the last of the feed and kicking the dust up on little Dasher. Not sure what that's all about, but this guy was in a hurry. If you made it this far in the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button to follow along and see if the eagles take over the nesting site and keep up with all our pond builds and aggressive bass. But I hope you all enjoyed this video, and we will see you all next time.